Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're peeling back the layers on a topic that touches every single one of us, the very future of work itself. For generations, the story's been remarkably consistent. A new technology emerges, fears of mass job losses surge, but then, well, new industries bloom, new roles appear, and society adjusts. It's a comforting cycle we've come to rely on. But what if, just this once, that comforting pattern is fundamentally broken? What if the technological shifts we're experiencing aren't merely disrupting industries, but actually redefining our intrinsic relationship with labor? We're about to dive into some truly thought provoking material that dares to challenge those deep seated assumptions and asks us to radically rethink our future.
Indeed, we've got two highly compelling sources guiding our deep dive today. First, A Skeptic's Guide to the End of Human Work, which provocatively argues that the historical pattern is, in fact, broken. And second, a crucial strategic briefing prepared for the upcoming Second World Summit for Social Development, or WSSD2, scheduled for November 2025 in Doha, Qatar. Together, these sources paint a picture of immense urgency and propose a dual strategy, a stark choice, really, to prevent a potentially catastrophic future. Our mission today is to unpack why this moment is unique and what urgent global decisions lie before us.
Okay, let's really get into this. The Skeptic's Guide to the End of Human Work immediately challenges one of our most ingrained beliefs, that technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. It suggests this common comfort misses a crucial, almost existential detail.
What's truly fascinating here is the fundamental distinction the source draws.
Yeah.
Historically, new technologies primarily replaced our muscles. Think of the plow, the tractor, or the assembly line. They automated physical tasks, allowing humans to move up the chain, to manage, to strategize, to innovate. Humans went from doing the physical doing to the cognitive thinking.
So if past revolutions moved us from manual labor to mental labor, is AI now coming for our minds too? Is that latter kind of disappearing beneath us?
Precisely. AI is the first technology climbing that cognitive ladder with us. It can analyze, strategize, create, and even make decisions. When a machine can do both the thinking and the doing, well, there's simply no higher rung for the vast majority of people to ascend to. This, the sources argue, is the fundamental difference. It shatters the historical pattern.
But isn't this the standard historical pattern? I mean, every technological revolution creates new jobs. We'll need AI specialists, prompt engineers, and so on. Why isn't that argument compelling enough this time? Is the scale really so different?
That's a critical question, and it's where our sources pinpoint the fundamental break from history. The scale is profoundly different. Imagine this. A small team of, say, 10 highly skilled AI engineers could develop a system that renders 10,000 accountants, 50,000 customer service agents, or even 1 million translators.
Oh,
Well, redundant.
wow.
The job creation is orders of magnitude smaller than the destruction. And let's be realistic, the idea of a 45-year-old paralegal simply reskilling overnight to become an elite AI programmer.
Not likely for most.
It's often unrealistic for the vast majority. What's more, even those new AI-focused jobs are themselves rapidly becoming targets for automation by the next generation of AI.
So with AI's capabilities growing so fast, many might instinctively say, but an AI will never be a Picasso or something like that. Yet our sources suggest that comparison is actually missing the point entirely. Why is focusing on the best human performer a red herring here?
This raises an important question. What does AI actually need to do to replace a human worker? It doesn't need to be the best in the world, the truly exceptional Picasso. It merely needs to be better, faster, and cheaper than the average employee.
Ah, okay. That's the bar.
That's the critical threshold.
Can you give us some concrete examples of where this is already playing out, where AI is surpassing that average employee benchmark?
Absolutely. Take finance. A 2024 study cited in one of our sources found that GPT-4 could predict future earnings with 60% accuracy. That actually outperformed highly paid human analysts whose accuracy hovered between, 57%.
Really? Better than the humans?
In that specific task, yes.
Oh, in law.
A 2025 benchmark showed top legal AI tools performing tasks like document analysis up to 80 times faster than human lawyers, often with even higher accuracy. The moment AI becomes reliably superior and more cost-effective than the 51st percentile human in any white-collar profession, well, the economic incentive shifts irreversibly.
Many of us still hold on to the idea of uniquely human, skilled creativity, empathy as our last stand, our final frontier. What do these sources say about that fortress? Is it truly impenetrable?
Well, the fortress is already being breached, according to the analysis. On empathy, while machines can't feel it, they're becoming brutally effective at performing it. Studies show people rated AI responses as more compassionate and supportive than those from human doctors and crisis responders.
And why?
Partly because AI is never tired, distracted, or biased. The stunning success of AI companion apps in reducing loneliness provides real-world proof that the functional delivery of empathy is already here.
And creativity. Is there truly nothing left for us there?
AI models are now generating art, music, and text, often indistinguishable from human work. Some studies even show AI generating a wider diversity of novel ideas at scale. For commercial purposes, a new logo, marketing copy, background music for a video, the economic value is in the final product itself, not necessarily the artist's internal experience or unique human struggle.
So, if creativity and empathy aren't exclusively human anymore, at least in their functional economic value, that's a huge shift. But I can already hear listeners saying, wait, isn't there still a profound difference between a machine performing empathy and genuinely feeling it, or a machine generating art versus an artist's deeply personal lived experience?
Hmm.
How do the sources address that philosophical but also deeply human concern?
That's a crucial distinction, and the sources acknowledge it. However, they argue that for the purpose of work and economic value, the function often outweighs the internal experience. A customer service bot doesn't need to feel empathy to provide a response that a human customer rates as more compassionate because it's always patient, always unbiased.
Right. The outcome is what matters economically.
Exactly. A marketing team needs an effective logo, not necessarily an artist's soul-searching journey. The economic reality is that if the AI product is better, faster, and cheaper, the philosophical debate about its internal state becomes secondary to market forces. And this leads us to the truly unique aspect of this technology.
And what's that? The ultimate game changer our source points to.
This is the core differentiator. But for the first time, we've created a technology that can design and build a better version of itself.
Wow.
Think of it this way. A steam engine could generate power, but it couldn't re-engineer its own boiler for greater efficiency. AI, through what's called recursive self-improvement, or RSI, absolutely can.
Recursive self-improvement?
It's like having a brilliant engineer who then builds a smarter engineer who then builds an even smarter one in an endless accelerating loop.
Can you give us a concrete example of this recursive self-improvement in action? How does it actually work?
Certainly. In 2025, researchers created something called the Darwin-Gödel machine. This was essentially a coding agent that improved its own code.
Its own code.
Yes, dramatically raising its performance on a software engineering benchmark from 20% to 50% without any human help. Another system, LEGLEDR, teaches itself complex math, but is solving simpler versions first, essentially building its own understanding. This creates a runaway feedback loop, an exponential curve of development.
So, if AI can truly improve itself, this isn't just iteration, it's like an accelerated evolution. What does that mean for how quickly we might actually see AGI, artificial general intelligence, an AI capable of outperforming humans at virtually every task? Are we talking decades or something much sooner?
The implications of RSI are staggering. It means AI development is no longer linear. It's exponential. Imagine a technology that not only solves problems, but designs the next generation of itself. This self-improving loop is collapsing timelines dramatically. Many experts in the field now forecast AGI's arrival not in some distant future, but potentially within the next 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, that's incredibly soon.
It is. And this isn't just faster progress, it's a fundamental shift in the pace of human history itself.
So the Skeptic's Guide paints a very stark picture of AI's direct impact on individual jobs and capabilities. But our second source, the briefing for the WSSD2, reminds us this isn't happening in a vacuum. How do these accelerating technological shifts intersect with the profound global social instability it describes?
Right, the WSSD2 in Doha is far more than just a 30th anniversary event for the 1995 Copenhagen Summit. It's framed as an urgent response to that summit's unfulfilled promises and a host of new, interconnected global crises. The original aim back then was to recenter development on people, focusing on poverty eradication, full employment, social integration. But the policy frameworks implemented since then, often called structural adjustment programs, those economic policies typically imposed by international lenders involving austerity, privatization, these have proven profoundly insufficient.
And what's the core diagnosis for this 21st century social crisis, according to the World Social Report 2025 mentioned in the briefing? What are the biggest red flags they're waving?
The report sounds a clear alarm about a deepening global social crisis. It's characterized by three interconnected deficits that are, frankly, alarming. First, it highlights pervasive economic insecurity. Imagine, almost two-thirds of the global population, your fellow human beings, are living so precariously that a minor shock, like an illness or a bad harvest, could mean catastrophe.
Two-thirds. That's staggering.
It is. And it's awesome because over half the global workforce is trapped in informal employment, with no safety net, no social security.
And how does that connect with inequality? That seems to be getting worse all the time.
Exactly. This insecurity is massively fueled by entrenched and systemic inequality. The report highlights that the wealthiest 1% have captured truly astronomical wealth just in the last decade, over $33.9 trillion since 2015.
33.9 trillion.
Yes, an amount that could eradicate annual global poverty many times over. It's not just a disparity, it's a chasm.
And what about the impact on social trust, the sort of glue that holds societies together?
Well, this extreme wealth concentration and insecurity then erode the very fabric of society. Over half the global population reports profound distrust in their governments, and even in each other. That lack of trust fuels polarization, misinformation, and makes collective action incredibly difficult right when we need it most.
And this isn't just happening in isolation, right? It's being compounded by other crises converging.
Correct. We're seeing climate shocks that put 1 in 5 people at risk of devastating welfare losses. Violent conflicts impact 1 in 7. The COVID-19 pandemic alone reversed years of hard-won gains. Over 90% of those who had recently escaped poverty in places like Ethiopia and rural Zambia fell right back into it. It's a perfect storm in many ways.
Given this really grim backdrop and everything we just heard about AI's potential impact on human labor, the strategic briefing for the WSSD2 makes an incredibly bold statement. It declares that full and productive employment, a key pillar of the 1995 Copenhagen Summit, is now, and I quote, an outdated and undesirable goal. So if creating jobs is no longer the answer, what is the new imperative?
This raises an urgent, perhaps existential question. What do we do when the necessity of human labor for survival is effectively eliminated? The source proposes a radical, dual strategy. We must accelerate the automation revolution as quickly as possible to reach a post-scarcity society.
Accelerate it, not slow it down.
Accelerate it, yes, and simultaneously implement a post-labor income model, think UBI, UBS, to prevent catastrophic social collapse. It's about managing the inevitable, not resisting it fruitlessly.
So the goal isn't to save jobs, but to actively plan for a world without compulsory work. And if this transition isn't managed swiftly and deliberately, what kind of risks are we talking about? Social unrest.
Exactly. The urgency is underscored by the risk of creating a new, permanent, useless class, a term popularized by Yuval Noah Harari. This refers to a large portion of the population being not just unemployed, but essentially unemployable, their skills made obsolete by automation. A slow, unmanaged transition risks deep social polarization, resentment between a small, wealthy elite and a vast, economically irrelevant majority, and likely widespread social conflict. Accelerating the transition, paradoxically, is seen as a prerequisite for maintaining social peace in the long run.
These proposals for a post-work civilization, UBI, UBS, rethinking capitalism itself, they're certainly transformative. But the immediate question for many listeners will be, how do we actually pay for all this on a global scale?
Right, the financing question is huge. And the answer, according to these sources, requires a direct challenge to the extreme concentration of wealth we just talked about. Key proposals include things like universal basic income, UBI, those unconditional cash payments providing a baseline security, and universal basic services, UBS, making essentials like housing, healthcare, education, transport free at the point of use, essentially decommodifying survival.
Decommodifying survival.
Yes. And beyond that, exploring genuinely post-capitalist models. Things like the digital commons shared ownership of AI systems and the wealth they generate. Or degrowth, shifting focus from GDP to ecological well-being. And economic democracy, more worker and community control over economic decisions.
It sounds like traditional labor policies, the kind we hear debated constantly focusing on decent work or even just reskilling for new jobs. These sources argue they'd actually be counterproductive. That's a radical thought.
Our source argues precisely that. Policies aimed at a just transition in the old sense, or protecting existing jobs, are based on what they see as a flawed premise. That new jobs will simply replace old ones at the necessary scale. These efforts, while often well-intentioned, could actually delay the necessary implementation of post-labor income models. They risk perpetuating an obsolete system and ultimately leading to a more chaotic and painful transition, not a smoother one, kicking the can down the road, essentially.
Okay, these sound like powerful, maybe even necessary solutions, but they are incredibly challenging politically. Why aren't we seeing them implemented already? What are the biggest roadblocks?
The obstacles are fundamentally political and ideological, not technical or financial, according to the briefing. The gravest danger, as we discussed, is a protracted transition, dragging our feet. A slow, unplanned shift risks social collapse because work is so deeply tied to identity, status, purpose. Losing it en masse leads to profound psychological shocks. The useless class scenario breeds resentment in conflict history, shows clear links between high unemployment and unrest from, the Luddite riots back in the day to modern crime statistics. A rapid, planned transition is crucial to preempt this.
And beyond just the speed of the transition, what other headwinds are these proposals facing? Ideological ones.
Absolutely. There are deeply ingrained ideological headwinds. The work ethic, this idea that equates human value primarily with economic productivity, makes imagining a post-work world incredibly difficult for many cultures. Narratives of austerity and fiscal responsibility consistently frame universal social programs as unaffordable costs rather than essential investments in social stability and well-being. And then there's the weaponization of stigma, divisive political narratives targeting benefit recipients, which constantly undermine public support for the very universal programs needed.
You also mentioned the financial architecture itself as a barrier. How does that play out specifically?
It's immense, this sheer political power of corporate and wealthy lobbying. The source mentions they outspend labor groups by something like 34 to 1, effectively blocks the kind of progressive tax reforms needed to fund these changes. There's the debt crisis, particularly in the global south. Many countries spend far more servicing existing debt than they do on health, education, and social protection combined. It cripples their ability to act.
So they're trapped.
In many ways, yes. And AI introduces new obstacles too, especially for developing nations. Things like onshoring, where automation makes it cheaper for companies in rich countries to bring production back home instead of outsourcing. And the potential collapse of remittances, that crucial money sent home by migrant workers if their jobs get automated abroad.
Given all of this complexity, all this urgency, the upcoming WSSD2 in Doha really does appear to be a pivotal moment. What strategic recommendations emerge from this analysis for the global leaders gathering there?
The analysis is pretty clear. The summit cannot simply reaffirm old commitments from 1995. It has to be a catalyst for systemic change, confronting the very real possibility of a post-work future head-on. The desirable social progress, the sources argue, isn't necessarily more jobs, but a concrete plan for a world where no one is forced to work simply to survive. Primarily, they frame this as a bulwark against catastrophic social collapse. The briefing actually offers 4 distinct strategic suggestions, or maybe framings, for the summit. Each one is quite impactful.
Let's hear them. What are the options?
Okay, first, suggestion A. Focus on liberation and equity. The message here is, we demand a post-work future, using AI's abundance to provide universal basic income and services, ensuring equitable sharing of global resources. So that's framing it around human liberation.
Okay.
Second, suggestion B, focus on preventing social collapse. This one says, to prevent social collapse, we must accelerate a just transition to a world without compulsory work, powered by automation and shared prosperity. This frames it as an urgent preventative measure, almost like disaster preparedness.
Right, risk mitigation.
Exactly. Third, suggestion C, focus on human value beyond work. This proposes, let's build a society where human value is not tied to employment, using automation to guarantee universal economic security and human flourishing. This centers on redefining human purpose itself.
Philosophical shift.
And finally, suggestion D, focus on a new economic model. This is more about the mechanics. We propose a new economic model, sharing the wealth from automation through a global fund to provide universal basic income for all. Very direct focus on the economic mechanism.
No. Wow. Each of those suggestions is incredibly powerful and presents a really profound choice for world leaders. It certainly sounds like the resources to fund a new global social contract exists.
Yes, the argument is the wealth is there, especially with automation potentially unlocking even more.
But the political will, the collective agreement to mobilize them, that's been the missing piece so far. What a deep dive. We've journeyed from the fundamental, almost sci-fi nature of self-improving AI to the really gritty, urgent global policy decisions facing us right now in Doha. The belief that jobs will be safe or that the old patterns of technological change will just repeat themselves. Well, according to these sources, that seems to be a profound misreading of our current situation.
The core message is stark, isn't it? We seem to be heading towards a future where compensated jobs, at least for the majority of people, may largely disappear. The debate, therefore, needs to shift very rapidly from if this will happen to how we proactively, justly, and equitably manage this unprecedented transition. We can't afford to wait and see.
So, what does this all mean for you listening right now? As you consider this potential future, maybe think about this. In a world where machines produce nearly all of the economic value, how do we ensure that every single human being has the resources they need to live a life of dignity, purpose, and security? And maybe even more profoundly, what would human purpose truly look like when it's no longer defined primarily by the work we do for money? What amazing possibilities might that unlock for humanity? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration has given you some new insights, maybe sparked some critical thinking about the future we're all building together, whether we realize it or not. Until next time, keep exploring.